Welcome, dear listener, to the Savor the Burn podcast. My name is Jonathan. Across the table from me is Mr. Wizard Fingers W2. How do you do?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Real quick, I want to thank everybody for listening to the Savor the Burn podcast on their favorite podcast app of choice, including but not limited to Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google, Samsung, many more, even Samsung. And while you're there, give us a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel if you share the video and you leave us a comment, hit like. We definitely need to do that. If you're looking for a non-financial way to support the podcast, that's 100% one way to really help us out. Let's go over there on YouTube and do that. But otherwise, keep spreading the burn.
That's right.
And you do that on all of our socials.
Yeah.
Right? Facebook, Twitter, X, TikTok, Instagram. That's how we do it. So without further ado, we're going to get into this bottle, this nice-looking bottle here, Old Forester 1910. What can you tell me about it?
Man, I am excited, and I have been waiting to get this on the podcast for a minute now. Recently, you brought over the 1910 to add into the mix.
Okay.
I already had the 1920, which I got this last summer from the distillery in Louisville. And I got a chance to visit the distillery. Super cool space in downtown Louisville. And so I've had a little bit of the 1920. I have not tried the 1910. I do know that my sister absolutely loves the 1910.
Okay.
The Old Forester 1910, I think, is one of her favorites, if I'm not mistaken. But I have not tried it. I think the 1920 is fantastic. We'll be trying that pretty soon on probably the following episode. But on this one, we're going to dive into the 1910. And the 1910 is a no-age statement. It's distilled by Old Forester in Kentucky. Like I said, it's in Louisville. This comes in at 93 proof.
It's pretty color.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said something about Old Forester, and I said, is there another bottle? You know, maybe we can get it and do a flight. Maybe we could do whatever.
They have a lot of offerings.
They really do.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know what the hell to do because I'm usually lost. But I figured if I'm there and I'm willing to buy a bottle, it's for the podcast. Let's get a bottle for the podcast. And so you already had the 1920, like you said, and I said, I don't know, should I get another Old Forester? And like, well, my sister loves the 1910, and I'm like, fine, I'll get the 1910.
Yeah, and the 1910 is called the Old Fine Whisky.
Okay.
It says here, priceless bourbon with noble ancestry. Sometime in the 1850s, an entire street in Louisville's center was dedicated to bourbon production called Whiskey Row. Soon after that, the first bourbon in sealed glass bottles was introduced as they called it Old Forester, named after Dr. William Forester, the local pharmacist and a good patron of George G. Brown, the whiskey maker. Those just kind of sound like they go together.
Yeah.
The pharmacist and the whiskey maker.
Yes. Well, I mean, in olden days, what is this 1910? So, yeah, the distillers would distill a spirit that they could use for tinctures.
So it says, now, who names their new product after their favorite customer anymore? Then, in 1910, hence the name on the bottle, Old Forester had a fire in the bottling line.
Oof.
So in order to save the precious amber potion, they moved the batch into new charred oak barrels. When they fixed the distillery and tried the stored bourbon, their minds were blown. The flavors were incredible. Today, Old Forester 1910 is the final release in the Whiskey Row series, and it emulates that rescued whiskey in being moved to a heavily charred, almost burned second barrel when it's matured enough. It's bottled at 93 proof. Old Forester 1910 is a wonderful mad scientist experiment that delivers a unique and unprecedented flavor. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So not just 1910, but all Old Forester has been double barreled.
This one specifically is the last in the Whiskey Row series, meaning the last in the series of before the fire that burned the original distillery. Okay. This was the final series in that because they took what was in those charred barrels and moved them to try to save them, and they had got extra crispy. And so I think this particular offering is in those extra charred barrels, not all Old Forester.
Okay. And I like how Old Forester, it's spelled Forester, but the doctor's name had 2 R's, Forrester. And that's just on the notes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if somebody made a typo. I don't know.
Good catch. Probably not.
I only caught it because when I went to post it in the groups, I did it with 2 R's. And then I was like, wait a minute. And then I went back and looked at the pictures that I just posted with them and said, oh, hecky no. I done fucked up.
This not only...
so I had to go back and edit.
This not only smells like bourbon.
Well, I hope it tastes like bourbon, too.
This smells really, really good.
That really does. Real sweet on the nose.
Very
almost
creamy.
Like a wine.
Very creamy. Some kind of a stone fruit.
Is it supposed to have butterscotch on it?
It says buttercream and toffee.
Oh.
So,
buttercream, toffee.
And apricot. Oh, and cedar.
After reading it, I can pick up on some cedar. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Let's get it on the nose. I mean the palate.
Oh, that's nice and smooth.
It is smooth.
I mean, that's a nice, smooth, well-rounded, creamy flavor.
Yeah. Is it weird to say that that's nicely creamy on the mouth? But yeah, you've got your sweet that's on the nose. It's more defined on the palate as to something like maybe not molasses. That's not the right word. Some kind of dark sugar.
Yeah.
And the baking spices that are in here, I didn't pick up on the nose.
Are you getting any chocolate?
Maybe.
Like a milk chocolate? That is really good.
I'm not sure I'm picking up on the chocolate. Is that what you were picking up on?
Mm-hmm. More caramel, some corn.
Yeah, I was going to say the sweetness is like dark sugary, maybe caramely, and it's got that corn sweet too.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if typical whiskeys pre-prohibition did not taste like this, and they put them to try to save as much as possible? They put them in these overly charred, burnt barrels to help preserve them. Mm-hmm. And then after everything was under control and they built the new distillery and they moved them back over and they opened up the barrels for the first time very first time tasting what something that was already aged and been put into another barrel tasted like. I bet their minds were blown.
Yeah. Kind of have no choice but to be blown. And the finish is nice too. It's long, it's sweet.
It is.
Got that kind of baking spice finish on it.
There's definitely a lot of oak on the palate and the finish, but I don't know if I pick up on an overly charred oak.
No, I don't know. We've had some
and
really
maybe
oaky...
that's just because we've gotten used to that.
That could be
that charred oak.
I mean, I pick up on like a charcoaly oakiness as I'm talking. I can taste it, but it's not overpowering. It's not off-putting at all. It's just a very, very good whiskey.
Yeah,
a very, very good Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey,
to be specific.
Yeah.
This is definitely could be a very, very easy drinking daily.
Yeah. Did you say what this retails for or MSRP?
It is $60.
$60. This is a solid
remember?
bottle. I don't remember buying it. I know it happened, but I don't remember buying it. And this was only just a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
I've been through a lot. Yeah, this is a solid $60 bottle.
I like the bottle. The little details. You just pulled the top off of that, and it's a natural cork, real cork,
wooden stopper.
Yeah, wooden stopper. The little tape band that goes across the top of it.
It looks like blue masking tape.
Mm-hmm. But then it's got the very top of it. It's got the 93 proof, and then it's got on the bottom of that tape the same 93 proof circle, little medallion looking thing. What I love about the Old Forester labels are they all are on brand. They're all very similar, and so the second you see it, you know it's Old Forester, and you recognize that. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of looking for, are you getting the 1897 or the 1910 or the 1920.
Yeah, the design of it's simple. It's very straightforward. It's definitely pre-Art Deco trim around the whole thing, and very classic looking. Mm-hmm. It's got the info that you read before in 1910, the fire on Whiskey Row, and it's double barreled. It's got a nice little short, brief history on the front about how this bourbon came to be, and then on the back it's got another very short little message, pretty much from George Garvin Brown, the founder, and that's whose name is on the side, that blue neck band that you were talking about. That's who's on the side. You can kind of see it.
Whiskey Row is a cool little part of Louisville.
I have not been.
We were in such a hurry. I mean, we got in time for lunch, and we stayed overnight, and the next day we were hitting the road because we had a date with Buffalo Trace that we had to get to Frankfurt. So we only got to spend a day in Louisville. But when we first got into Louisville, like I said, we got in right in time for lunch. So we headed downtown, and right off of Whiskey Row, which Whiskey Row is right down by the river. And one of the bridges that goes up and over the river forms the backside of Whiskey Row. This kind of I don't know what you would call it, but there's a few things back there, but it feels like it's a little off the beaten path. And we ate lunch at an awesome place called the Troll Under the Bridge.
Oh, okay.
Because it's literally, it feels like it's tucked up underneath the main bridge there. And they've got this huge troll that's a statue that's outside. We got some cool pictures next to it. And we had a good lunch there. And then after we were done, we basically just walked around the corner, and there was Old Forester, along with a lot of other things. But like I said, we were short on time, so we had very specific places to hit and needed to be that day. So we did not have a whole lot of time.
I feel like if there's a chance that I find myself on Bourbon Row checking all these things out, and I see Old Forester, I think there's a really good chance that I'm going to stop in. I'm going to make it a point to go check out and see what all they got.
I think you should. Yeah, you walk in, a lot of the distilleries these days is, they've really built up their gift shop kind of area. And they've got
they make money is merch.
Exactly. But right up front, they've got a really awesome, impressive gift shop. But then when you round the corner, you'll notice these glass stairs that kind of ascend up to the second level, fully open and everything. And it's fully open because at the very top of the stairs, you'll notice that there still is 2 levels, top to bottom.
That's cool.
And it's super cool.
Well, before we get into our rating, so I posted both bottles, the 1920 and the 1910, in the Kansas City Whiskey Guild. I figured I'll just go ahead and share everybody's thoughts on both on this episode, and then whenever we get to the 1920, I'll read what everybody said in the Whiskey Guild.
There you go.
So why not? We'll try something a little bit different. So Chris in the Kansas City Whiskey Guild says each are good by themselves. Mix them together and they are amazing. And like I said earlier,
maybe we need to do that.
We've heard that. We've heard. Actually, the next comment: make you some 1915. So I'm guessing that we would do that 50-50.
Sure.
I don't know how else to do that. I don't know if there's a tutorial on YouTube somewhere, but we might look that up later. Nancy, one of the admins and also a group expert, she says, those are my favorite Old Forester expressions. Now, she says OF expressions. And to me, OF is OnlyFans.
Oh.
Not Old Forester. So, thanks, Nancy. Adam says, love 1920. Well, we'll get to that eventually. Tim says, truthfully, those are as good as anything allocated they put out.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think it depends on the allocation.
Well, yeah.
It's not going to hold a candle to Stag or Antique 107.
Well, no, I think what they're referring to is the Old Forester's allocations. Like their birthday bourbon or their King Ranch offering.
Okay. I see you, Tim. All right. David says the 1920 tastes like licking the inside of an old baseball mitt in the best way possible. I love it.
You do you.
Yeah, you do you, bruh. Ryan says Old Forester is all caps solid. 2 of my faves right there. So I would tend to agree. As far as this Old Forester goes, it's 1910. This is really good. I'm really glad I bought this bottle.
It drinks very easy.
definitely. And I can see why it's one of your sister's favorites.
Very much so.
Dear listener, if you have not listened to either of the episodes that we had the pleasure of having W2's sister Faith be a part of, Faith and Tim, honestly, to be a part of, they're a riot. They're great. I'm happy anytime that we get to have them on with us, like using the old lingo, the Kentucky hug, the Tennessee. Mm-hmm. That's a favorite. And
Knox Vegas.
I like watching their wheels turn in their heads, as they're trying to describe stuff, because that's us. Like we totally try to figure out how it is that we want to describe stuff as we go. And
Tim's a great devil advocate for a lot of things,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean there's been, and you need that. You need the yin and the yang, We'll be over here going, "Oh my god, this is amazing." And he's like, I'm throwing it in the trash.
For me, there's much better bourbons on the shelf, but we had that with Chandler also. Yeah, with that Navigator. It seems like anytime you bring up Navigator around Chandler, and he's ready to throw hands, it's hands on sight.
That Navigator is the next time we have a get together and have a party, I'm going to put that out on the counter, and I'm going to subtly encourage people to take all you want.
Right. This was made by wine enthusiasts. And then we'll just let the party finish it off for you. So speaking of party, actually not speaking of party whatsoever, I was looking for a segue. We'll get into the rating here. Yeah. I gave it, on the nose, a 4.0.
I had the party going on. I gave it a 4.25.
Really? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. How about the palate?
Kept it going with 4.25.
Well, I'm going to see your 4.25. And I'm going to match you on the finish with 4.25. What did you give it?
I gave the finish a 4.25.
Very cool. Very cool. So did I. How about bottle presentation?
Well, I was on a roll, so I just stuck with 4.25.
You're kidding me.
I'm not kidding you.
Is this you or is this Tennessee? Because he would straight bill the whole damn thing.
I mean,
his whole rating would be straight bill.
I didn't want to get thrown off. I had 4.25 all the way down there, and maybe it's not the. It's not the Bookers, it's not the Blantons, it's not, the be-all, end-all presentation of some of the other ones. But there's a lot of little attentions to detail.
There is.
Yeah. And, I mean, it feels like a vintage bottle. I mean, just the design of the label, the font choice, the off-white and gold with a little bit of a blue. In this case, it's blue. Mm-hmm. I think when we get to 1920, it's kind of a seafoam green kind of a color. But it's just it's nice and simple, and
it really is.
I just feel that it's got an old vintage look to it. With all that, when I'm in the liquor store, it's very recognizable. Mm-hmm. If I'm looking for Old Forester, it's easy to spot.
Yeah, not hard to miss.
Yeah.
So I like it. I'm not crazy about it. So I gave it a 3.5.
All right.
Which brought my final score to 8 even.
Well, 4.25 down the row made mine an 8.5.
So we're not too far off from each other.
Not
a half a point. Big whoop. Well, I wrote down here as our own thoughts here, and correct me if I'm wrong, a very interesting story about how this bourbon whiskey came to be, and a mighty fine product to share with friends and family. We liked it.
True story, bro.
Do you have anything else to add?
This is awesome. Before having this, the 1920 was the only Old Forester that I've actually had. I'm very interested in getting into some of their other ones, which is why I was excited to start us off with this one. And solid offering. I see myself always having an Old Forester on hand because it's good.
If the 1910 is indicative of the rest of their product line, you can't go wrong with
it.
I mean, there's something in the taste profile of this 1910 that reminds me of that Antique 107, that Weller's Antique 107. I don't know what it is. I don't know what that thing is, but there's something about it that reminds me of it. That was my first thought when I took a sip. I was like, what's in this bottle? But those are completely different distilleries.
Exactly. And
like Antique 107, Weller's, that's all Buffalo Trace, right?
Right.
This is Old Forester, separate parts of the state. I went to a liquor store in Raytown, and I was looking at the different stuff that they had. They had like a Knob Creek 9-year, I think it was. And I've heard good things about that. I saw the Knob Creek.
I've been hearing good things about that.
12, I think, is the blue label. They had that, and I think they even had the Knob Creek Rye a bottle that I just finished off. And I think the prices were fairly comparable, maybe a little bit high because, second market. But I also saw they had a few bottles of Blanton's. And I was like, well, how much do you want for those? And the girl that was helping me, she had to ring up everything, to tell me what the price was. But then somebody else walked around right before I asked how much the Blantons were, and she said $269.
$269
for a bottle of Blantons. And I was like,
that's $100 over secondary market price.
Yeah, that's $200 over MSRP.
Yes, sir.
It's a $69, I think. MSRP.
Yep.
But we keep talking about Bruzel.
$170 is secondary market.
He said he'll buy it all day at $100.
Right.
Which is
$100 is his top dollar.
Yeah. So that's
I agree.
I would agree. I would agree because he also said he gives away 4 bottles to every 1 bottle that he drinks.
Yeah.
And I like that because I gave away a bottle before I even had my own, and I wouldn't even have my own if it wasn't for you and Jennifer working behind my back to get me a bottle of it.
Speaking of, have you cracked that open yet?
I have. It's really good. Having it side by side with the regular Buffalo Trace, it reminds me a lot of the just the OG Buffalo Trace.
Yep. Same mash bill,
but oakier.
That particular bottle is also a store pick, so it should have been a good barrel.
And it really was. It really was. But that's just first impressions. It's oakier than whatever.
Oh, look at the shirt.
Oh yeah, you ran out and bought the T-shirt.
I bought the T-shirt, or I should say, I got the T-shirt for Christmas.
Right. Mighty fine. Well, that does it. Thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode of the Savor the Burn podcast, where we checked out this mighty tasty offering from Old Forester 1910, the first bottled bourbon, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Old Fine Whisky is what it says. It was fun taking a trip down memory lane, listening to your distillery hunting kind of story or tourism thing.
And I'm going back to Louisville this June. I think June is what we've tentatively marked it as, but and we're going to spend a little bit more time in Louisville, meeting Faith and Tim there. It's going to be a good time.
Oh, it's going to be a party and a half.
There's going to be some bourbon.
Some bourbon. I like it. I like it a lot. Well, like we said earlier, thank you for following along on all of our socials, and we know that you don't always have time to just sit and listen to an episode that could be 2 hours long, knowing us, but we do appreciate it because you can always hit pause, you can hit stop, you can come back and listen to it later and finish it off later. So we definitely appreciate you. So always, no matter who you are, what you're drinking, who you're drinking it with, never forget, dear listener, to keep on burning.